So moved.
Get a second, please.
Second.
And you want to deal with the treasurer's report?
Yep. So you'll see this is activity through the end of October. All we have is application fee that's coming in terms of revenue or standard operating expenses with legal and the audit that was done earlier in the year. So expenses are higher than revenues to date. Bring your attention to the project revenues and expenditures, the $52,665, which is related to the Glenville Rail project that was completed early summer. And so money went in, money came back out. So the cash on hand is at $4,586. But you see from today's agenda, we have 3 projects proceeding. So we're going to be refilling our coffers relatively soon. On the second page are the transactions for the year to date. And again, just wanted to, the larger numbers are all related to the Glenville Rail project. We had money coming in from Adirondack Beverage as well as Dimension Fabricators. They paid, their matching share of that project. It was done, but when the DOT money came to the IDA for the entire project, everyone was paid off. So there's been quite a bit of activity, but certainly that one project was done. David did a great job of managing the whole thing. The companies are very happy with the work. It looks great out there. So that's a big success for the year. But we'll be replenishing our bank account as we get through some of these projects today.
Very good. Any questions? Any discussion? No. Signed by saying aye. Aye. Motion is second. Discussion on that. Jamie, please do the budget discussion.
Right, so if you look at the right-hand column, that is the proposed 2021 budget. You'll see that on the revenue side, we're showing, a substantial increase in activity for next year relating to the Rivers Ledge project, the Pattersonville solar project, and then the Chippy transmission line that we'll be talking about in a couple of minutes. We have our standard operating expenses with respect to legal services and a portion of the fees that are collected go to Metroplex. But you'll see that overall we'll see a much improved cash position that we expect to get in 2021. And even in 2020, if you look in the middle column, we expect that some of the projects we'll be talking about today, and I'll reference it later, that we'll be collecting some fees before the end of the year. So we'll be in a better position. Once the budget is approved, it gets sent to the ADO, it's posted on the agency website, so it's available for anyone to look at.
Any questions? Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of 488-20, the adoption of the year 2020 budget, signify by saying aye. Aye. Resolution 489-20 is the Champlain Hudson Power Express project. This particular resolution is an authorization to hold a public hearing. Take a motion and a second for purposes of discussion, please.
So moved. Second. Sarah.
Jamie, you want to start this discussion off? Our last year is setting the public hearing, and our role really is to ascertain the most advantageous way to access afterwards.
Right. So the application that's come in from Champlain Hudson Power Express, which they refer to as Chippy. You'll see it's an enormous project, $2.2 billion for a transmission line from Quebec to New York City. It is going to run through 3 municipalities in Schenectady County. It's a buried power line along the railroad rights-of-way in Glenville to Scotia, then through Rotterdam, and then back out again. The total cost of the work in Schenectady County alone is $100 million. Runs about 14 miles. It'll take 1 to 2 years for all that work to get done, although they have not been able to say exactly when construction would get started. As you can see, it's a huge investment. We have had discussions with the company about a pilot, and the pilot is important for them because it really creates some tax certainty. They are working with IDAs, up and down this portion of the state to try to establish putting pilots in place so they know what their tax obligation would be for 30 years. It's going to be a complicated pilot because there's 7 different tax entities involved, so it creates some legal issues in terms of just even the public hearing and the pilot deviation process. But it's a very substantial pilot in our view. They will also have to pay special assessments. The railroads, if they're on railroad beds, the railroads are still paying their taxes, so it's quite a benefit for the school districts, the towns, and the county. They have all federal and state permits in place. They are moving along with several IDAs right now, and so our next step would be to try to hold a public hearing, probably in a month or so, and then we would get into some final discussions about the pilot, which I know Ray would also like to talk about. But Ray, I'd like to answer any questions that you might have.
Gary, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump in. We've been working with the developers here to get this line built. They need to work with the various county IDAs. We're fortunate in Schenectady County that all of this work would basically be in a rail bed, as Jamie said, that already pays us taxes. They can't work with 150 different taxing jurisdictions and get this pipeline built. They have to have the certainty of a pilot in order to get this project financed and built. They just cannot do it any other way where you go out and negotiate with 150 different entities. So they're looking to deal with the county IDAs. We've talked to our colleagues at the other IDAs, and as Jamie said, we're negotiating for the best possible deal. The company has, or the developer has, we think, put on a very fair proposal that there's 2 different options under the pilot, which we'll be sharing with you. One of them, and again, one accounts for 72% payment for the fixed term of the pilot of 30 years, based on the full assessment of $100 million, the construction cost of the project. The second version of the pilot starts paying on $100 million with 60% and goes up to 95% of full taxes through the course of the pilot. Both generate substantial new revenues for the communities that are going to benefit from this project. The county receives between $400,000 and $500,000 in new revenues yearly, and it increases on an annual basis. The Niskuna School District's about $300,000. Chalmont between $600,000 and $700,000. Scotia Glenville between $360,000 and $430,000. This is just for no impact. This is to lay a pipeline that delivers electricity, green electricity to New York City, and strengthens the energy independence of upstate New York, and provides redundancy in the grid. And so there's a lot of environmental and energy impacts as well, of course. But we're going over the numbers hard. We're talking to the state. We're talking to our sister and brother IDAs around the state with our council, and we will get out more information to the IDA members and to the municipalities. We do not impose pilots on our municipalities. We talk with them and get their consensus as we proceed with these projects, as you all know, as a matter of good practice. But we're pleased that to move this forward, to ask you to move this forward today. And, we think it creates really an annuity over 30 years for the various tax jurisdictions with no impact. There's no school kids here, there's no buildings, there's no, liabilities. It's all new income to the tax jurisdictions. The one thing about the pilot that we're excited about is, it offers increased payments and increased values. Normally, if you went out and assessed this thing, you'd be in court fighting over the assessment and the value of depreciation, and that the pipeline in 25 years would have a much lower value because you've depreciated all the value. Therefore, the tax payment should be de minimis. We avoid all of those legal wranglings by fixing the number and getting the best deal up front. This, of course, does provide a very large fee to the county IDA. We estimate at this point it's in excess of $1 million. So that would help us with our various programs like the rail project that Jamie talked about earlier, which is just proven to be invaluable to Adirondack Beverages and to Dimension Fabricators, both huge employers in the county, good paying jobs. So we're happy to answer any questions, and we'd ask your support to move this forward. Thank you.
Sounds great.
I have a question, this is Sarah May. In reviewing the routes, the map of the route, I see that in the town of Glendale and town of Rotterdam, there was a preferred route, but for whatever reason, the actual route will be different from the preferred. Do you know anything about that, or reasons why, it looks like just in the county of Schenectady is where the route kind of changes from what they had preferred?
I would like, Rick is on the phone from the developers, but before he comments, I mean, the developers have been very cooperative. Early on, the route was to follow part of Erie Boulevard downtown, which would have really been chaotic for downtown and required a lot of reconstruction, where we just finished construction. And the developers were really super in working with the city engineer to lay this along the rail route. We're very blessed. In some counties, it goes under lakes or under the Hudson River. Here, it's basically all along the railroad. I thought we had the final proposed route, Sarah May, and I don't know if we can get that out to members. There's a graphic that the developers provided us that shows kind of a snapshot, 12 different photos showing the proposed route along as it traverses the county. So I can get that out to you today. But I think we're dealing with the final proposed route at this point. I don't know that there are any other changes pending. Rick, do you want to comment?
Sure. And you're right in terms of the reason why the route is shifted. When the project was originally proposed and permitted, the preferred route or the approved route was right down Erie Boulevard and through the city, where they had planned at the time major redevelopment efforts. And if the timing would have been right, it would have been kind of a win-win situation where, they'd be tearing up the streets, we'd be, laying cable, and we'd all work together and we could help each other. Well, the transmission project didn't move along as quickly as the redevelopment plan. So the city asked us if we could find an alternate route so as not to disturb all the fine work that they had just completed as part of the redevelopment of Schenectady. So we ended up changing the route, moving it to within the railroad rights of way where it would be buried, and submitted those changes to the Public Service Commission, who approves projects like this, and they have since approved what I think is identified on the map you're looking at as the preferred alternative, which goes through Glenville, Scotia, and back into Rotterdam.
That's very helpful, thank you. sounds like very good work. My other question is, I believe I have heard that the municipalities that are involved in the project will be receiving, some grants. Is that true?
The city, or excuse me, the town of Glenville asked the company to help them with rail systems that they were interested in completing, and the company has agreed to provide a modest amount of money to support that. So that is, in fact, in Glenville, in Scotia or Rotterdam, we haven't been approached with a request like that. And you know, we don't have a grant program per se for the entire project. If that Glenville asked for some support, we figured out a way of doing it. And I will just add one other thing. Ray and Davey did a fine job explaining the project. We do have resolutions of support from each of the municipalities within Schenectady County supporting the project and its route. So that might be some useful information.
And that's where those trail discussions came up when you were getting Glenville support for the route. And
That's correct.
yeah, so all those municipalities have supported the project, as the governor supports it. I mean, it's got a lot of support for the energy aspects of the project as well.
Absolutely. It looks like a fantastic project and win-win. So thank you for clearing up some of those questions for me. I appreciate it. Thank you for your hard work.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or discussion? Jane, you had one. It wasn't real clear to me where we are in terms of discussions with the municipalities as far as the direction on the pilot. Is that premature at this point, or was that not understanding it correct?
Well, because
The pilot, the first that funds is done pursuant to the state tax law, and it's basically just follows the normal enforcement of the taxes.
Okay. Thank you for that.
But all the municipalities will be, because this is not a standard pilot, they'd all receive a letter talking about the proposed pilot and the public hearing, correct, Jamie?
That's right, so we'll reach out to all of them in advance anyway.
We do that anyway as a matter of practice. Good questions. Thanks, everybody, for the input.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of passing the resolution to set public hearing, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution approved. The next item is, the agenda. There we go. Next item is, resolution 490/20, DSR Development Company and the Pattersonville Solar Facility Project, Princetown. It's an authorization for ownership. Okay. Can I get a motion to the second for discussion? Anyone?
So moved.
Jamie, do you want to read it through the transfer of ownership for existing?
Yeah, it's effectively the final action that's needed on the Pattersonville Solar project. It's been to the board many times over the last year or so. 20 megawatt solar facility, 150 acres off of Scotch Church Road. Pretty much ready to go in trying to get to the closing. We need to approve this final resolution as well as there is a change in ownership. As you'll see, one of these neatly named LLCs, the GSRP Development Company 4. which is affiliated with Goldman Sachs Group. They're heavily involved. They're making investments in solar facilities. We've been working with a group that is based in Albany, so there's a local presence here. The total project cost is $36.5 million. The pilot that's been agreed upon throws off $100,000 per year and grows at 2% a year. You know, the taxes now on the farm are less than $15,000 a year. So they would like to get going on this fairly soon. And with your consent, we're looking to get this closed before the end of the month and collect one half of the administrative fee, with the other half closing just as they wrap up construction mid-next year.
I'd like to thank Connie and her team for pushing this along. The folks that started this project were from Washington State, Tycos Energy. They wound up selling the project to this group that's very active in the Northeast, CS Energy, that's affiliated with Goldman Sachs for the financing. Jamie said they have a local office, very excited about the project. The pilot revenues here go only to the school district and the county. The town negotiated its own agreement because they have no town tax in Princetown. They were able to negotiate a separate payment that's not covered by the pilot. So this is all new revenue. This was basically a closed dairy farm, a portion of a closed dairy farm that was owned by a disabled vet, and it really helped save the rest of the family farm for the family. And we're really excited to move this forward. We pressed very hard to get this closed by the end of the year and get some activity going on there. This frankly lagged a little bit, and we've been, with Connie's help and Jamie's leadership, we've been pressing them to get going and get in the ground and get us some action on this major solar development in the county. We're happy to see it move forward.
Question? Hearing none. I'm sorry, go ahead. Connie group, a voice. Okay. Hearing now, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. The next resolution is 41-20. This is related to the planning project in the town of Niskuna. We probably should have a bit of a history lesson here. This one's been around for a while. And perhaps I start that at need a motion as a second.
So moved.
Second.
This is,
This project actually moving forward.
yes, it is. There's been quite a bit of site work that's been going on. You're right, Gary. This is a little bit of a repeat of a resolution that was approved in January to provide an interim sales tax exemption. Nothing really proceeded after that, so we instructed them they needed to come back and make the request. So here it is. They would get a 3-month sales tax, interim sales tax exemption while they're lining up their financing. If we pull together the final pilot, they are in a go mode, and then typically when we provide these interim sales tax, which does not happen often, but we usually collect half of our administrative fee, which we will be doing on this. So again, this should happen fairly quickly. Ray's had some discussions with the developer recently, so he can give you a little bit more up to date on what's going on.
Yeah, this is the old Williams junkyard, auto junkyard in Niskuna on the river, right off the Rexford Bridge. Take it right out from the bridge on the Aqueduct Road. The developer is Peter Luisi. He's finishing up a $70 million project that's actually in, I think, Green Island, but if you're in downtown Troy, you can't miss it. It's called Starbuck Island. It was a brownfield remediation, smart growth project. Peter did a beautiful job there. The project is very well regarded in Rensselaer County and in Troy. Peter's coming over here and investing $26 million in the old junkyard. He was delayed by COVID this year, and frankly, his crews were finishing up Starbuck Island. We've been again pressing him to get going. He's literally blasting. There's some rock that needed to be removed from the site. The site had a lot of development issues, which is why we did offer the pilot here, and I'll explain the pilot in a minute. The site work here is substantial. The town is getting some new recreation assets. There is a sewer connection that's made here from the project to the city sewer plant. The city's been a great partner in this project. It basically opens up a big swath of waterfront in this unit on the river for development. The pilot, the junkyard currently pays about just over $15,000 a year in taxes, which is, tying up all that acreage for $15,000 doesn't help anybody. The pilot is 10 times that, so they pay $160 a year for 5 years. We limited it to 5 years, and then they pay full taxes after that. So the town and the county and the school district right out of the rip get 10 times what they're getting now, and they get this $26 million investment, and the waterfront turned from a junkyard into an attractive development that's much more in keeping with the town of Niskayuna. The developer's proven, he has a track record, a very good track record. He's very excited about the project. The bank financing is in hand. And I think we're ready to go. The site work, as Jamie said, is underway. So we get a large fee here, and we get a good project going in this unit.
And vouch for the green, it's pretty impressive.
Yes, it's a big project, 70 million. And this is big too. This is 26 million, and it's a good investment.
Between COVID, sorry, this is Sarah May. Between COVID and the increased cost in building materials, I think partially due to COVID, is there any concern that this project may be slowed, or are there any further concerns with the completion of this project?
No, I mean, Peter, in fact, there's been a lot of interest expressed by folks in living, at this site, because it is waterfront. He expects to do very well here. COVID slowed him down. There is substantial additional cost for site work. Each unit here, the site work cost is about $20,000 a unit over a greenfield site or a suburban site. Again, good justification for the pilot. But the bank finance is in place. He's building one. He's finishing the site work now. He's building one unit to kind of get the bugs out, one apartment building, and then he'll build out 80 units, and then build out another 80. And those should all be done by March of 22, and then go from there as far as future development. But there's parkland opened up, that whole canal park along the Rexford Bridge from the town owns really gets opened up. Our goal is really to connect the bike trail from the Rexford Bridge to Freeman's Bridge along the water. It wasn't built along the water, it should have been, but the people who were running economic development in Schenectady County prior to '04 said that you couldn't do that, and but if you're getting a long way in here from the Rexford Bridge along the waterfront, and the development, we're kind of coming up from Freeman's, and if you could run that trail along the water, it would be fantastic. But Peter is ready to go. He's very confident. He's a proven developer. The risk is all on him at this point, but the banks have vetted his numbers, and he got the financing. So, good question, though.
That sounds great. I think just as kind of a side note, I do paddle by that area quite often, and I don't know if anyone's aware, but there's quite a few beautiful bald eagles that live right in that area. So as you talk about kind of connecting the bike trail, the bike path, and all the development going on there, has there been any talk or consideration of that bald eagle population, or nothing that you've heard of?
I know, the town really was, this went through like a year-long review by the town. So it was very exhaustive, and seeker requires, looking at all the environmental impacts. So, if anything, we don't see any negative impacts, because the footprint of this project is right within where just literally thousands of junk cars were piled up, right? So, if anything, it's a benefit to the environment, and it cleans up the junkyard. and which has already been cleaned. I mean, that was one of the reasons for this project taking so long, is he had to take all the cars out of there and then remediate the site. So we see it as a all-around benefit. I've seen that bald eagle too, when I'm out on the bike path. It's incredible. I mean, growing up, the bald eagle was almost extinct. It's extinct. It's fantastic to see that along the trail. So, you know,
Yeah, there's at least 3 over there. I love visiting them too.
yeah, it's awesome.
But no, it sounds great. It sounds like an absolutely wonderful project, and again, another win-win. So looking forward to seeing that get started.
Great.
And again, this is for this road, right, this is a 3-month exemption, for now. Again, the company, if they're not getting started in 3 months.
That's right. We expect that they'll have their financing in place. It's been, a lot of the banks are just kind of backed up at this point more than anything. There's so much activity going on, particularly in the residential market. So this will allow them enough time to get the entire package together with their lenders and with the IDA, so that, you know, we all sit down at the table and sign off on everything.
But we know
Should be sufficient.
the bank loan committee has approved this. We know that. So
Yeah.
they've got their financing and are ready to go. And again, he's doing site work down there now.
Yeah. I think Sarah's point about that potential delay is valid. We've seen that, so I'm glad you asked about that, Sarah. It's good to know that's not going to be an issue. We've seen some delay right in this season in terms of construction due to construction costs.
I saw that right over by the library, right?
Yeah, correct. I'm glad you asked that question. I talked to Jamie about this project yesterday, but it's good to have that conversation and it was a great project.
And I think one of the things that we can all be proud of is that the 5 years of getting 10 times as much taxes as the auto junkyard paid did help get the financing approved by the bank. I actually know somebody on the loan committee for that bank. I mean, it is a commitment by the community to give the developer a partial break on taxes, although he's paying 10 times what was paid there before. But it does help alleviate some costs, and especially the additional site costs from cleaning up that site. But it does help the whole package, so it is a critical need here, where this pilot makes the project happen, which is how it should be.
Right. Do we have any idea what the full value of, taxes after the 5-year pilot will be? So it'd be about $150 million a year, for 5 years.
150,000, no, 150, I wish it was 150,000, 160,000, and it pays about 15 now for 5 years. After that, it's up to the assessor. It's a $26 million, 160 unit apartment building with pool, clubhouse, amenities, green space, trails, connects to the New York State, Canal Empire Trail. It's on the water. I think it's going to assess, at a good number, and the full taxes on that will be substantial.
Yeah, we do our own internal analysis, Rosemary. I mean, we could probably send you what we think it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's, obviously it's not set in stone, but just was wondering, obviously, what that will end up being.
Yeah. We can let you know.
Thank you. All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Comments? Hearing none, all in favor of resolution 491-20, signify by saying aye. 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 Approved. Is there any other business for the IDA? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Call to order the December 4th meeting of Schenectady County CRC. We have Reserve Corporation. They have a motion on approval of the minutes from our 15th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
We have a motion and a second on the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
Amy?
You'll see there's not a lot of activity to report for the CRC through October. No revenues collected. Our standard audit fee. You'll see the $5,000 expenditure from an approval earlier in the year for the county watershed board. So you'll see we're running a modest deficit for the year, but our cash on hand remains at $21,935. The second page of the report shows you the limited activity that we've had so far this year.
Any questions on the trip? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the report, please call the roll. Aye. Opposed? Treasurer's report accepted. Resolution 20-20 is the fiscal year 21 budget for the CRC. Have a motion and a second for the discussion on the budget.
Second.
You'll see it's a very similar budget to this past year. We're showing some revenue, trying to generate a project. As you know, the CRC typically works with not-for-profit organizations, so maybe something will come out of Ellis or Union. It's a tough environment in some respects now for these types of businesses, but that's what we're forecasting, our standard expenditures of certainly the audit that has to take place. The audit, as you know, gets filed with the authority's budget office and is placed on the CRC website with your approval.
And we're talking, we're hoping that, post-COVID, we started talking to Clarkson. Clarkson is doing really well with their graduate program in Schenectady. We're hoping that they consider using the CRC for an expansion. And again, as Jamie said, this organization is a great tool for Union, Ellis, major nonprofits in the county who want to go to the capital markets with debt. The CRC is a great resource for them, and the activity is low because of COVID and current events, but we're hoping that get a project going next year.
We're here to help. We're ready to go.
Yes, well said.
Any questions for the CRC budget? Hearing none, all signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 20-20 is the fiscal year budget, 2021 budget is approved. Any other business coming before the CRC this morning? Hearing none, can I have a second on an adjournment? Second. Second.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you all.
Sure.
Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Stay well.